This is BBC News, and these are the top stories at midday. Violent crime has increased by a fifth in the past year, according to the latest recorded figures for England and Wales.
There is no question that the fact that we have the lowest number of police officers on our streets since the 1990s have contributed to this rise in violent crime, particularly knife crime.
Donald Trump touches down in Davos ahead of meeting Theresa May at the World Economic Forum. The PM says there's lots to discuss.
That special relationship between the UK and America is as strong as it ever has been. And what I want to be talking to the President about, and will be talking to him about, is a whole range of foreign policy areas where we have face shared challenges and are working together.
Shops, cafes and businesses are to offer free water refill points in every major town in England within 3 years. Britain's Kyle Edmund crashes out in straight sets against Croatian Marin Cilic in the semi-final of the Australian Open. Also, speed doesn't always equal success for predators like cheetahs. New research suggests that as big cats get faster, their prey become more agile to help them flee. And does this woman's face look familiar? Turns out the Basel mummy is a distant relative of Boris Johnson. Good afternoon. It's Thursday the 27th of January. I'm Carol Walker. Welcome to BBC Newsroom Live. Official figures show that recorded crime in England and Wales rose by 14% in 2017. In the 12 months to last September, robbery rose by 29%. Sex offences rose by 23%. And knife crime rose by 21%. However, the Separate Crime Survey, based on interviews with 35,000 households, suggests that crime continued to fall. Well, earlier I spoke to our Home Affairs correspondent Danny Shaw, and he gave me his assessment of the figures.
There is no doubt that police forces are incredibly stretched and resources are very tight, and we're seeing today the latest figures from the Home Office on police force numbers. The number of officers is down by around 900 compared to the previous year, and it's the lowest for over 20 years. So these figures tell you about the workload on officers. That can't be ignored. They're having to log more crimes and deal with more crimes, and they've got fewer officers. Is that impacting on crime overall? Is the fact that there are fewer detectives out there are fewer officers out there able to prevent crimes from happening, able to stop and search people, is that having an impact and actually leading to a rise in crime? Well, that is a job for a criminologist to do. I don't think there's a simple answer to it, but it may be having a contributory effect.
These are, on the face of it, some pretty significant increases, and significant increases in some of the most serious crimes.
Yeah, I think when you look at the most serious types of violence, there are undoubtedly real increases going on there. Even the Office for National Statistics accepts that with gun crime and firearms offences. I always look at the homicide data, because the homicide data can't be manipulated. It isn't prone to changes in recording methods. And when you take away the terror attacks from last year and the Hillsborough deaths, which were included in previous set of figures, what you are seeing is the highest number of killings and murders for almost a decade. There were 57 more in the year to last September, the 12 months prior to that, 650. Now that is a real concern because what it shows at the most serious levels of violence, there is a genuine increase going on there.
Danny Shaw talking to me a little earlier. Well, the Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott has also been reacting and has blamed cuts in police numbers for the increase in some crimes.
I think these are shocking figures, and we see that crime, violent crime, including knife crime, has gone up, which is the thing that people are most frightened of. With knife crime, one of the things we need is more police officers. Since 2010, the numbers of police officers have gone down by 21,000. One thing Labour would do would be to put more policemen out there, particularly as community policemen, engaging with the community. But we also need to look at expenditure on youth provision. We also have to look at levels of youth unemployment, but it needs resources and it needs more policemen.
And where would the money come from for that?
Oh well, we would reverse Tory cuts to capital gains tax. I mean, to recruit 10,000 extra policemen would cost, I think, 330 million by the end of the next term of government, and we do it by reversing Tory cuts to capital gains tax.
Diane Abbott. Donald Trump has arrived at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He'll meet Theresa May later, following an unsettled period for relations between London and Washington. Tensions were raised last year when Mr. Trump retweeted a video by a British far-right group, and his proposed state visit to the UK has attracted angry objections from some MPs. Well, earlier this month, Mr. Trump cancelled a planned trip to London, where he was due to open the new American embassy. Theresa May will give a speech in Davos first, amid continued questions over Brexit and the country's trade deals after it leaves the EU. Speaking earlier to our economics editor, Kamal Ahmed, Mrs. May insisted the economy was resilient.
Well, I think we just have to look at figures like the employment figures that came out this week, where we show employment at record levels. I think this is important. It shows an economy that is strong, an economy that is providing those jobs for people. But I want to see us doing more. I want to see us looking ahead to the economy of the future. And that's why those challenges like artificial intelligence, ensuring that the United Kingdom is not only a great place to do business, but we're at the leading edge of the future economies.
You have a meeting with the President today. What do you want to get out of that? And what do you say to those who feel that the special relationship is rather more special for Britain than it is for America? And will you be inviting him back to after that cancelled visit that he cancelled before Christmas?
Well, as you know, we've already made an invitation to the President for a visit to the United Kingdom, and obviously that will happen in due course. That special relationship between the UK and America is as strong as it ever has been. And what I want to be talking to the President about, and will be talking to him about, is a whole range of foreign policy areas where we have face shared challenges and are working together. So whether it's working together in relation to North Korea to stop them from their illegal activity in relation to ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons, whether it's working together in Syria, where of course, and Iraq, where great strides have been made in relation to dealing with Daesh, or whether it's working together to reduce the destabilizing activities of Iran in the region. We work with the United States on all of these issues, and we'll be continuing to do so.
Free trade as well, possibly?
Well, free trade is a topic that I have discussed with the President in the past. We're very keen that we'll be able to do that free trade agreement when we leave the European Union with the United States of America. They're keen on that, we're keen on that, and we're already working on how we can shape that.
Theresa May. Well, Katty Kay is in Davos for us now. And Katty, Theresa May meeting the American president a little bit later, but the overall theme, surely, this American president who keeps telling us that it's all about America first, that's hardly the message that the global elite are going to be wanting to embrace.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you've had administration officials here for the last couple of days laying the groundwork for President Trump's speech on Friday. I spoke to a couple of them earlier who said to me, look, we want to reassure our allies America first doesn't mean America alone, but they are also saying in the same breath, but we are going to protect American consumers and American voters. What's interesting actually here in Davos is I think the president's going to get a warmer reception from this global elite, this populist nationalist president, than one might have expected, simply because the economy, the global economy, is doing so well. And to some extent, President Trump is coming here to take a victory lap. He is going to say to them, look, it's my tax cuts, it's my deregulatory policies that are boosting American growth. That's also having an uptick effect on global growth. And I've even spoken to one senior senator here, a Republican senator, who said all of this great economic good news is helping on national security issues as well. So whilst if you polled these world leaders and business leaders here, they would probably say we don't like his tone, we don't like his tweets, we don't like what he says about Africa and the language that he uses. they certainly like the kinds of policies that it's affecting and the state of the global economy.
And we heard Theresa May there talking about the special relationship, talking about the prospects of a free trade agreement once Britain has left the EU. But you do really get the sense from President Trump that those sorts of issues, that relationship with the UK, is a long way down his list of priorities now.
Yeah, the Treasury Secretary made a point of saying today, look, we will put Britain at the front of the queue, unlike President Obama, who said he was going to put Britain at the back of the queue. But I've spoken to people involved in trade negotiations in Washington, and they've made it clear that if it comes to a trading relationship and agreement with the UK, they're not going to make exceptions to what the UK has to import in order to get that kind of agreement. And the truth is, this kind of agreement takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So whether when it actually comes to it, the Trump administration is going to do the UK any particular trading favours or move particularly fast after Brexit, I think that's a much bigger question.
Given all the uncertainties over Brexit, how important is it that Theresa May uses this opportunity there in Davos to try to at least establish some relationships, put out some reassurance about Britain's role in the world after we leave the EU?
You know, I mean, it's interesting talking to European diplomats generally on how do you deal with this administration, given that it's such an unusual administration. What I hear is we can't ignore the United States at the moment, and Britain has real issues that it has to deal with, whether it's Syria or Iran in particular, that they have to deal with this administration, and they have to find a way to deal with this administration, whether they're in the EU or whether they're out of the EU. I do get a sense in Washington, first of all, that people are looking at Britain in a slightly different way. One American national security advisor recently put it to me, listen, if we are going to make the trip across the Atlantic to talk to Europeans, right now we're going to go to Brussels because we can frankly deal with more countries. And if Britain is not around that table anymore, when it comes to dealing with issues like climate change or like trade or Middle East security issues or international development issues, that is a problem in terms of the status that Britain has in its dealings with the United States. No one in Washington is going to tell you that the special relationship isn't the special relationship. They know that that's a hot button issue for the UK. They know how sensitive that kind of language is. But the reality is that if they're choosing on their time and how to budget their time and their influence, increasingly they are looking at France and they're looking at Germany as key players in the European debate.
OK, Catty Kay, many thanks for the latest from a gloriously snowy-looking Davos. And the Prime Minister has said she was appalled by the reports of the President's Club event and is not happy that it took place. In an interview with the BBC, she said she thought the objectification of women was something we were leaving behind. Well, the Education Minister, Nadhim Zahawi, has been reprimanded by Number 10 for attending the men-only charity dinner. The minister said he felt uncomfortable and left the event early. Alexandra Mackenzie reports.
The annual President's Club charity dinner for men only at the Dorchester Hotel. Women were hired as table hostesses. There are claims they were groped. They were made to wear revealing outfits and specific underwear, and their phones were confiscated. Madison Marriage is the Financial Times journalist who went undercover to expose the dinner.
Multiple women told me that they had been touched inappropriately, and that ranged from you know, holding their hands to touching their stomachs to you know, hands near the bottom of their back, you know, the things which maybe you might not find too offensive, but then, you know, touching their bums, touching, kind of grabbing them, pulling them into their laps.
One of the event organisers, David Mellor, resigned his position as a member of the Department for Education's board, and summoned to explain his attendance was Education Minister Nadhim Zahawi. He was called in to see the Chief Whip. On social media, Mr Zahawi said, "I do unequivocally condemn this behaviour. The report is truly shocking. I will never attend a men-only function ever."
He didn't stay long. He went home very shortly after the hostesses were announced by the presenter and paraded around the room. I think that indicates to me that he was shocked by the events, didn't like the culture, the atmosphere, and left.
The Charity Commission said it was investigating the claims as a matter of urgency.
It must be clear, charities and fundraisers are horrified by what they've heard. The charity sector is reeling from this, and the response of charity leaders and fundraisers has also been very strong in saying this behaviour has absolutely no place in charity.
The President's Club, which said it was appalled by the allegations surrounding the event last week, said it will distribute remaining funds to children's charities before shutting down in the wake of the scandal. Alexandra Mackenzie, BBC News.
Now the headlines here on BBC Newsroom Live. Violent crime has increased by a fifth in the past year. According to the latest recorded figures for England and Wales, the number of recorded sex offences, knife crimes and robberies also increased. Donald Trump touches down in Davos ahead of meeting Theresa May at the World Economic Forum. The Prime Minister says she plans to discuss foreign policy issues when they talk later. Shops, cafes and businesses are to offer free water refill points in every major town in England within 3 years. That's what's proposed under a new scheme launched today by the industry body Water UK. Now let's look at some of today's other developing stories. The port of Calais has been closed after a blockade by French fishermen. P&O Ferries has called on the French authorities to clear the demonstrators without delay. It's thought the protest is about losses which French fishermen say are inflicted by some countries' use of electrified fishing nets. At least 3 people have been killed after a train derailed near the Italian city of Milan. Some reports are saying as many as 5 people may have died. At least 10 sustained serious injuries and as many as 100 others are receiving medical treatment. The cause of the derailment is not yet known. The singer for the Manchester post-punk band The Fall, Mark E. Smith, has died at the age of 60. His partner Pam Vander, who is also the band's manager, said Mark died at home on Wednesday morning and added that a more detailed statement would follow in the next few days. The band released more than 30 albums with the frontman, who was known for his distinctive style of singing. And for a full summary of the news, you can go to our website, bbc.co.uk/news. Now, plans to set up tens of thousands of free water refill points across England are being unveiled today. Water UK, which represents water companies and suppliers, says it wants to expand a refill scheme first launched in 2015. It hopes it will reduce pollution by drastically cutting the amount of water sold in plastic bottles. Tim Muffet reports.
Across Bristol, since 2015, businesses have been inviting people in, not to spend money, but to refill water bottles for free.
People want really practical ways of how they can stop using as much single-use plastic in their lives, and refill is a really obvious way of doing that.
Natalie Fee set up the scheme. An app tells people where refills are available, as do these signs.
I think it's great as a way of sort of not using as much plastic.
It's a nice, easy thing to do, increases footfall to the cafe.
There are now 200 refill points across Bristol. The scheme spread to other places, including Durham, Norwich and Brighton, but it's about to get much bigger.
For every water company by September this year is going to draw up what they can do to sign up more businesses to provide free refill points. We want tens of thousands of refill points by 2021. We think we can take tens of millions of plastic bottles out of the waste stream.
So, more of this, less, it's hoped, of this.
It's just horrible down here along the banks of the River Avon, and there are hundreds of plastic bottles down here. It's disgusting. So many of them are drinking water bottles.
Your project, your initiative is going to be run on a national scale. That must be very exciting.
It is, yeah. I mean, for this to really work, it needs to be on every high street, in every shop and cafe.
In the UK, we buy more than 1.7 billion litres of plain bottled water every year, according to The Grocer magazine. For the first time, sales are outstripping that of cola. But if it'll soon be far simpler to refill a bottle with tap water, what effect will that have on demand for these?
I don't think it's going to have a significant impact. In that I
Kinvara Carey runs the Natural Hydration Council, set up and supported by companies that produce bottled water.
Bottled water is different to tap water in the sense that it's naturally sourced, it's not chemically treated, and a lot of people choose it for those reasons or for taste reasons.
The Natural Hydration Council says it backs the refill scheme as it wants more people to drink water, but it believes disposing of bottles responsibly is a bigger issue.
So the bottles themselves are 100% recyclable. The bottle, the label, the lid.
Whether it's recyclable or not isn't really the point. Half of the plastic bottles used in the UK are not getting recycled, and the majority of them are escaping the waste system and ending up in places like these.
Ending plastic pollution will require major change. Natalie hopes that's one step closer. Tim Muffet, BBC News.
And we can speak now to Heidi Mottram, who is the Chief Executive of Northumbria Water Group, who is in our Newcastle studio. And I think we can also speak to Natalie Fee, who is the founder of City to Sea, the organisation behind the refill scheme, and is in Bristol. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. And if I can just ask you, first of all, Natalie, tell us a bit more about this scheme and how much difference is it really going to make in terms of reducing the amount of plastic waste?
Refill is really part of a family of refill schemes that were first initiated. There was one down in Bude in Cornwall in 2014, and I really thought, well, how could we do that on a city level? How can we scale this up across the country? So we've seen a really good appetite for it. We've been inundated with requests for people to run refill schemes in their area because it is such a simple campaign. It's literally all you need to do is remember to carry a water bottle out with you and fill up on the go.
And let's just bring in Heidi Mottram here. Just tell us, first of all, is the scheme already up and running where you are?
Yes, it is. We first met City to Sea last summer and just thought it was a brilliant campaign that we wanted to get involved with. So we first went with Durham. So Durham is now a refill city. But what's been brilliant is since that was known about in December, the interest in this is just mushrooming, and so I think we expect to announce Newcastle very soon and the rest of the North East probably very soon after that.
Because for it to actually make a difference in terms of waste, Heidi, you know, areas like yours, it's got to happen pretty widely, hasn't it? It's no good at just happening in one or two towns or cities.
Yes, but I think that seems to be, you know, exactly what is happening. You know, we've started recruiting businesses in Durham, and very soon, because companies were coming to us and saying that they wanted to be a part of it. So that went really, really fast. And we would expect the same to happen in Newcastle as well. So I think it's only going to be a matter of months before this is really, really pretty much what everybody's doing.
Natalie, we heard in that report there the point made that some people want to buy mineral water because they know the source, they know that it is untreated, and they can't be as confident as they can be about the stuff that comes out the taps.
Oh, I think they need to be very confident about what comes out of the tap. We're very lucky in our country. We have the Drinking Water Inspectorate, and they set the very high standards of quality for drinking water here, and drinking water from the tap in the UK is amongst the highest quality in the world. So, but that doesn't mean to say that people don't have choice. They can.
Natalie, I'd just like to bring you in here.
Sure.
On that point, some people will want to have the taste, the knowledge about the origin of source and so on that they get from buying mineral water, won't they?
Yeah, I think if people do their research, they can discover that actually a lot of bottled water is just bottled tap water anyway, and we've got some great regulations in the UK, as Heidi was saying. But for people, if it really is a matter of taste, they can still refill, and they can still have filtered bottles if they really want to. They can still filter their water. This is really about cutting down on plastic pollution and encouraging people to refill. So there's lots
for that to really make it a difference, don't people need to be buying their own bamboo bottles instead of still using the plastic bottles, which are still going to end up contributing to the extent of waste?
Yeah, well, we encourage people to buy stainless steel bottles or glass bottles. I mean, refilling any bottle is better than using it once, but we encourage people to use stainless steel and glass so they can chuck them in the dishwasher and make sure they stay clean and they can be used every day, day in and day out.
So just coming back to you, Heidi, have you noticed that there is a real difference in terms of people's habits?
I think it's obviously early days because we only launched the scheme in Durham in December, but I think we can already see with the interest that this campaign has and the success of its time in Bristol and some of the other cities that yes, definitely this is what people I think are really wanting to do. And I think when we saw David Attenborough and the BBC's Blue Planet programme, I think that really brought home to everybody the damage that can be done by single-use plastics, and this has captured people's imagination and they want to make a difference.
Just coming back to you, Natalie, this is, isn't it, about a shift of culture when until recently a lot of people thought that they were putting out a positive signal about their health because they were carrying around a mineral water bottle. Now we're saying don't do that, just refill it from these taps, so long as there are those taps available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got 13 refill schemes across the UK already and 1,600 free refill points on the app, which is free to download. And so people can be doing that already. But the idea behind it really is to create that culture change, to normalise carrying a reusable bottle. So it's more common to see someone on a tube with a reusable bottle than it is with a plastic bottle. That's really what we're aiming for.
OK, Natalie Fee in Bristol and Heidi Mottram in Northumbria. Thank you both very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you.
Now, the weather, and let's catch up with all the details from Lucy Martin.